Hello and welcome to another Betfred Sports video right here in the Quest Media Network studio. Peter, we'd usually reflect and preview on the Premier League fixtures over the coming weekend, but let's face it, the fixtures have been decimated due to COVID, so we're just going to run through the ones that are taking place and the ones that have been postponed. So firstly, the ones that have been postponed: Manchester United against Brighton and Hove Albion, Southampton versus Brentford, Watford v Crystal Palace, West Ham taking on Norwich, and Everton v Leicester City. The ones that are taking place, thankfully, at the moment, although things can change, as we know: Aston Villa are taking on Burnley, Leeds United are hosting Arsenal, Wolves entertain Chelsea, Newcastle host Manchester City, and Tottenham Hotspur host Liverpool. Let's reflect on City's 7-0 victory over Leeds on Tuesday. City in 7th heaven, Leeds abysmal.
Well, they were. I mean, that was a fantastic performance by City. It's one of those that will go down in history, and all City fans will say, "I was there." A bit like I used to always say, "I was there when City beat Huddersfield," something like that. Yeah, that was an incredible game, and it was just one of those where everything went right. De Bruyne back to his fantastic best. Foden running the show. Grealish also played well, but who didn't? I mean, Leeds abysmal, as you say. They were right off the pace, and you do wonder about Leeds surviving in the Premier League now, because their expansive style clearly isn't working. To play out from the back is not working at all against the pressing game of City and Liverpool and all the top teams. And they need to change it, and change it quickly. Yeah,
it's all well and good to play nice, attractive football from the back, attacking, entertaining football. But if it's not working and you're in the Premier League, you cannot afford to play that football. The money that comes with getting relegated, the loss you'll make, ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a case of they should be capable of changing, not per match, but during the game. They should be able to change players of this calibre. They're struggling, and it'll be interesting to see how they rally. What I would say is the support for Leeds is phenomenal.
Yeah, it is.
It's fantastic, and the club deserves it. Should reward them for their loyalty, travelling up and down the country as they do.
Definitely. Leeds always had great support. Even when they were in League One, I remember going watching Stockport at Ellen Road. I think it was in 2008, but let's face it, Stockport have gone south, Leeds have gone north. Leeds doing quite well, not well this season, but in terms of the past few years, have done pretty well. Now, taking a look at City's game on Sunday, they make the journey to Newcastle United. Newcastle United took the lead against Liverpool on Thursday, but were then beaten 3-1. Not really surprising, Peter, but to be fair, the Magpies gave it a good go.
Yeah, they did. I was mighty impressed with them. It was a highly entertaining game. I thought that Newcastle gave it a good crack, and they were unfortunate. There was a dispute about whether that the equaliser stood when one of the players got a head injury, but it didn't look much of a clash anyway. And if they stop, it's not the referee's prerogative to stop the game. It's a myth that it's up to the players to stop it. It doesn't have to stop the game, but it didn't look. And he did wait till that phase of play was over with the goal. And if you start stopping it every few seconds like that, players will start fainting a head injury, and then trying to get the game stopped when the team's in possession. So they've got to be very, very careful with that. So as you say, Newcastle, they're in the relegation scrap now. Betfred have them as equal third favourites for the drop. We've got Leeds 10-1 to be relegated. So they're slipped into the bottom 5 on the betting terms now. Burnley 10-11, Watford 4-6, which is the same as Newcastle, and Betfred have Norwich at 1-5. Now for the game itself, Newcastle v City, as you say, on Sunday. Newcastle 16-1 to beat the champs. City 2-11 to win, and the draw 13-2. Foden and Silva 7-2 to score first. Jesus and Sterling both 4-1. And Grealish is now back in the betting at 6-1. But don't rule out Newcastle taking the lead like they did at Anfield the other night. Callum Wilson 8-1 to score first. And St. Maximum is 16-1 to score first.
Very under player here. Love his kind of style of play. Now, what are the top 4 odds looking like in the title odds? Obviously, given the amount of games that are being postponed, and potentially there could be loads more to come. How does that affect the title odds and stuff like that? Because a lot of teams could play a lot more than others, couldn't they?
Well, I think it's a kind of a good time to play Newcastle before they start strengthening in January. So that's going to affect the top four and also relegation potentially. I don't think it'll particularly affect the title odds, because you'd expect City, Liverpool and Chelsea to all beat Newcastle, even if they were able to strengthen significantly. But for the top four, you can accept that City, Liverpool and Chelsea will be in the top four. United are next up at 4 to 6. Right. I do think there'll be some shuffling around the transfer window, which is fast approaching. Pogba's situation for one, Jesse Lingard's another one. Players who are on the fringe of that first team could be moved. The old Phil Jones might come into the reckoning. He could be on the move. And quite frankly, he's an half-decent player. Yeah. He could certainly do it at championship level.
He's come under far too much criticism, hasn't he? I think that anyway.
Yeah, he does. He's a good, solid centre-half. Not quite as good as Fergie made out that time, but he is certainly a good player. So for the top four, we've got United at 4 to 6, so they're the favourites to get the fourth slot. Tottenham 3 to 1. Arsenal coming good again. Talk about inconsistency with them. 7 to 2. West Ham drifting a little bit now, 4 to 1, and Leicester also sliding a little bit, 22 to 1.
Interesting stuff. Well, we'll move into some sports personality of the year news now, because the event is taking place on Sunday evening. As we said on last week's video, Lewis Hamilton not in the running anymore. That's pretty disappointing for himself. And Mercedes have decided not to appeal that very controversial Abu Dhabi Grand Prix loss. What do you make of that?
Well, I didn't think they'd appeal in the end, because as Lewis Hamilton has said, he doesn't want to be the champion who would be remembered for winning it in the courtroom. So once they'd made their views known on the night, and rightly so, I think they were right to back off and allow the authorities to run the sport, even if they did make mistakes and make decisions on the hoof, as they did with the last lap runoff, which seemed a bit odd after the race had been dominated by Lewis Hamilton. So for the sports personality of the year, which you rightly say doesn't include Hamilton, amazing that decision, it really was. Emma Raducanu is the huge, it's almost a shoe-in favourite, 1 to 20 to win the public vote on Sunday night. What could go against her is people may assume that she's not going to, that she should win anyway, so not bother voting, so there might be an apathy there. Yeah. But tennis is hugely popular with both sexes, so that would see her through, I would imagine. 1 to 20 with Betfred. Tom Daley, the popular diver, he's 12 to 1, Olympic medal winner, of course. Tyson Fury, well, I snigger there, because he says he's going to sue the BBC for being chosen. Well, he's 25 to 1. The way he'll come through is if there's some kind of huge rebellion in the nation and everybody votes for him. Sarah Story, Paralympic legend, she's 100 to 1. The swimmer, Adam Peaty, now that's an unusual one, because he swimming is sort of a Cinderella sport in this country. It only comes to the fore when we've got the Commonwealth Games or the Olympic Games. He's an absolutely fantastic athlete and a good personality. He's 100 to 1.
He was in Strictly as well. He was?
Well, I know you're keen on Strictly. 100 to 1, Adam Peaty. And then the very, very, very unusual one of Ryan Sterling, who's got in probably because they feel they need a footballer, being the national sport and all that. Yeah. And we did come second in the Euros, and he helped City win the title. But the fact is, he don't always start for City, and I reckon that if they were going, they should have made their mind up. The judging panel who selected the shortlist, are they going for a footballer who, because of the Euros, which was a great achievement, coming second to Italy, and if that was the case, then surely they should have gone for Harry Kane, who hasn't won anything on the domestic front, that's well documented, but has captained England. I know we does the business for England.
Yep.
Anyway, they didn't. They went for Sterling, and he's 100 to 1 with Betfred to win the Sports Personality of the Year. Should never ever rule out footballers. Ryan Giggs came from nowhere to win it once, and it is the national sport and very, very popular. So he's 100 to 1 to win the Sports Personality of the Year on Sunday.
There you have it. As Peter said then, tennis sensation Emma Raducanu, 1 to 20, clear outright favourite to win the BBC Sports Personality of the Year. That's taking place on Sunday evening. Now, I've got a bit of politics news for you because on Friday morning there was a bit of a shock. The Tories lost Shropshire Norfolk. Was it the first time ever?
Well, first time 200 years.
200 years.
So that's a bloody nose for the Prime Minister. The Conservatives are now 4 to 7 to win the most seats in the next general election, so they're still favourites. Labour 6 to 4, Liberal Democrats 50 to 1. Liberal Democrats won that by-election, which result came this morning. Next Conservative leader, now this is interesting, this will be the next Conservative leader after Boris Johnson, so Boris Johnson could actually get it again, and that wouldn't count in this market. But Rishi Sunak's favourite, 9 to 4, and Liz Truss, who has been doing some kind of behind-the-scenes manoeuvring, shall we say. She's 7 to 2. Michael Gove 7 to 1. Jeremy Hunt 10 to 1. And Javid, he's 16 to 1.
And as always, on these Betfred Sports Talk videos, we always highlight the big winners at Betfred. This week's no different. And Peter, you've highlighted one big story in this week's Tame Tie Reporter. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, these are identical twins who live in the Oxford area. They basically put a bet on within 1 minute of each other. £6 on the Spanish lottery, and that's why they call the Sombrero twins. Anyway, they basically won between them £60,000. They're buying new cars each. They're going to the Caribbean. They're going to treat the mum who they live with in Oxford. She's going to Bournemouth, and it's a fantastic little story about these two twins who've mirrored each other's lives, and they've won £60,000 from a £12 bet. So it just proves that you can win big from a small bet at Betfred.
As I always say, you've got to be in it to win it. Now, looking ahead to Saturday night, Strictly Come Dancing final. Here are the latest odds, courtesy of Betfred. We've got the final three contestants, which comprise of Rose and Giovanni, John and Johannes, and AJ and Kai Whittington. However, AJ apparently has suffered an ankle injury. Not sure if she'll be taking part, but I think she was actually shooing to be one of favourites.
Yeah, well, she's 10 to 1 with Betfred. Rose Ellis is 1 to 10, and John Waite is 12 to 1.
Well, there you have it. If you do fancy a pun on Strictly Come Dancing final, Betfred stores are now open, but you can also bet online via their app.